Hey, welcome back. It's your boy Will J. Let's get into some deck brewing shenanigans. Battle for Baldur's Gate is here, and recently I did a short video on the top 4 commanders and backgrounds I'm most excited for. And today, we're going in depth with one of them, Wilson Refined Grizzly. Wilson is a 2-mana value 2/2 green bear warrior that can't be countered, and he has Vigilance, Reach, and Trample, plus he protects himself with Ward too. Wilson also lets us choose a background, and the background we're going with is Raised by Giants. It's a 6-mana value enchantment that reads commander creatures you own have base, power, and toughness 10/10, and are giants in addition to their other types. This mono-green combination lets Wilson become, well, giant. And with him naturally having Vigilance, Reach, and Trample, he's a dominant force out there in the battlefield. The deck we're going to be brewing today is called Giant AssKicker. And this build is going to be capped at $80, excluding lands and commanders. If you like this type of content with budget build restrictions, let me know in the comments and make sure to leave a like and subscribe too while you're at it. It really helps me out. We'll go over our usual themes of ramp, removal, and draw, but then we'll also go over our other themes of Go Tall, Resilience, Lieutenants, and something we like to call UPP or Utilities, Bombs, and Pets. Mono Green has all the tools to consistently ramp out to fast starts, and for this budget build, I still run the classic Soul Ring Signet combination, but Green gives us access to land ramp like Nature's Lore and Rampant Growth, which both slot in at 2-mana value. Because we're running out of budget, 3-mana value classic ramp spells like Cultivate and Kodama's Reach are pretty solid options, and we can also run Nissa's Pilgrimage, just in case we hit Spell Mastery, Roiling Regrowth, which can be played at instant speed, and Migration Path, which we can cycle away for another card if we're flooded. These are just minute, if not negligible, incremental advantages, but Magic can be a game of inches and we'll take the advantages we can get. Green also has access to Creature Ramp, and Llanowar Elves is a classic turn 1 play. Topiary Stomper is like Rampant Growth but with a 4/4 body, and Beanstalk Giant is an early ramp spell that can be a huge beater later in the game. Green has some of the best non-creature removal in the game, and Nature's Claim only costs 1 green to play, and the gain for life is almost negligible. Krosan Grip has Split Second, which means it almost can't be countered, and we can stop any nonsense from happening before an artifact or enchantment is destroyed. Bane of Progress is an artifact enchantment sweeper, and it can wreck decks hard while also being a big beater. At $5.50, this is partly where our budget goes, but it's well worth it. For creatures, Ram Through lets us squish smaller creatures with the upside of dealing some damage to the face, and Azuri's Predation is a board wipe of sorts while also raising an army for ourselves. Tornado Elemental is a giant creature that gets through no matter what, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals 6 damage to each flyer, which is usually enough damage to take out a lot of the dragons or angels or whatever's on the field. Beyond these, Beast Within is a versatile removal spell because it can get rid of any permanent, and a new card from Baldur's Gate which I'm curious to test out is Emerald Dragon. The adventure side lets you fight on the stack in case there are some killer abilities. I don't know yet how good this card is, but it's a new wrinkle in the green color pie that I'm willing to try out. Green has no shortage of card draw, although these are usually conditional. But since we're planning to go tall, cards like Return of the Wild Speaker, Rishkar's Expertise, and Garruk Primal Hunter all let us draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures we control. Momentous Fall and Greater Good also give us burst draw based on our creature's power, and while we aren't a sacrifice deck, these are useful for getting a refund in the face of board wipes and targeted removal. Hunter's Insight is combat-based draw, which we can play after blockers have been declared. And outside of burst draw, we can also bring a couple of steady sources of card advantage. Tome of Legends is a little pricey, but it fits in decks like this with a low mana value and aggressive commander. And Garruk Surprising lets us draw when we play a big creature, plus it gives our whole team trample. In going tall, we can give Wilson all types of gear to make him scary. Now we are mono green, so we'll be pumping out a lot of lands. Strata Scythe gives an equipped creature +1/+1 for what would be number of forests in play, and the aura version of this is Blanchwood Armor, which will also cost us 3 mana. The instant version of this is Primal Bellow, which can be used as a combat trick to KO someone out of nowhere. Blackblade Reforge also cares about lands, although it isn't exclusive to forests. There are a few ways to grow via counters, and Forgotten Ancient is a 4-mana value 0/3 that lets us store up counters whenever a player casts a spell. Visions of Dominance lets us put a counter on a creature, and then it'll double the counters on it afterwards. Plus, because we're running Raised by Giants in the command zone, the flashback will only cost us 4. Cashing in on our budget, the Ancient Bronze Dragon is running at about $10 now, but if you connect with him, he can create a huge momentum swing from just how much power you're putting onto the battlefield. Another pricey card I really like is Unnatural Growth, which is really hard to cast outside of 1 or 2 color decks, but at the beginning of combat, it doubles the power and toughness of each creature we control. This means Vanilla Wilson becomes a 4/4, great, but Giant Wilson becomes a 20/20. Last on this list is Indomitable Might. It has Flash, which means it can be a combat trick, and it gives +3/+3 while also giving Super Trample, allowing you to let all the damage through as if your creature isn't being blocked. Now, because we're running auras and things like this, removal and complete board wipes can really hurt us. Eternal Witness and Skullwinder let us fetch out any card from our graveyard, whether that's an important enchantment or artifact or whatever, and while Wilson can protect himself with Ward 2, Hexproof is also an effective way of protecting whatever creature we have on board. Swiftfoot Boots gives Hexproof and also haste. Canopy Cover gives Hexproof and makes that creature hard to block. Guardian Augmenter gives Wilson Hexproof and also a small +2/+2 boost, and Sarith the Vampire's Fang gives Wilson constant Hexproof because of his vigilance, but can also save any of our other attacking creatures at instant speed. The Death Touch part here can be relevant as well, particularly if a tapped attacking creature of ours has Trample. More resilient types of protection is Tamiyo's Safekeeping, which can tank board wipes and targeted removal, and the classic Timor Sabertooth, which can bounce a creature back to your hand to protect it, while also getting indestructible itself. This is again another case where Wilson costing just 2 can be to our advantage. However, commander attacks can still add up, and so we're enlisting these lieutenants who can step in and finish the job. Managorger Hydra is an early threat with Trample that grows with each spell cast, and Ulvenwald Oddity is a 4-mana value 4/4 Trampler with haste that can transform into an 8/8 in the late game while also giving our other creatures Trample and haste. Terra Stomper is a 6-mana value 8/8 Trampler that can't be countered, and so it pushes through against control decks that want to fight on the stack. Giant Adaphage is a 7-mana value 7/7 Trampler that can multiply itself whenever it gets through. If you notice, these lieutenants I've selected all have Trample, and this is so that they'll synergize with the Go Tall cards that we went with earlier. We don't want chump blockers ruining our plan. And so the next lieutenant I have lined up is Sylva's Rogue Elemental, a 6-mana value 8/5 Trampler with Regenerate. That's some old school keyword right there. Hopefully Regenerate will be enough to keep it alive to survive, because some of the newer board wipes don't have that can't be regenerated clause. Another resilient threat is Multani Yabimaya's Avatar. Since we're ramping out hard, he can be a huge threat because he gets +1/+1 for each land we control and in our graveyard, on top of having Reach and Trample. And if he dies, he also has an ability that allows us to revive him from the graveyard. Now, since we're playing with such big threats, this means we have a home for Galta Primal Hunger, a 12/12 Trampler that gets cheaper to cast based on the total power of creatures we control. Now, Trample is great, but again, Super Trample can be a game ender. Siege Behemoth is a 7-mana value 7/4 with Hexproof, and when it attacks, each creature we control can assign combat damage as though it weren't blocked. Now, before you get excited and think, wow, that's broken, just remember it doesn't have haste, and this is probably its biggest drawback. It's coming down late game, so if anyone was sitting on a board wipe in their hand, that is getting cast this turn cycle. And if there was a time for the table to gang up on you, this guy will likely put a target on your back. For UBP, we're just gonna round out some rough edges. Yorvo is a 3-mana value 4/4 that grows over time. Sure, he's vanilla otherwise, but he'll grow into a threat under the radar. Yeva Nature's Herald lets us play creatures at instant speed, essentially giving our team pseudo haste. Plus, she's only $2.5. Titan of Industry is a fairly new card, and it fills in so many holes. It gives protection with a shield counter, it's a removal spell for enchantments and artifacts, and it's also a lieutenant with its 7/7 Reach Trample body. Scavenging Ooze ensures we're a responsible player by bringing graveyard hate. Brass Knuckles and Fire Shrieker are equipment that can give our creatures double strike, which also helps them survive combat while dealing huge damage. And finally, Basilisk Collar gives lifelink and Death Touch. And if you aren't familiar with how Death Touch works with Trample, I give a short explanation in the video that you should see in the link at the top right of your screen. This giant ass-kicking deck loves to play with its commander, but fortunately our game plan won't fall apart if Wilson gets hated out. I'll be posting the deck list in the description down below, but excluding lands and both commander cards, as of the time of this posting, this deck clocks in at $79.95. If you have some pricier staples lying around that you want to mix and match in this build, feel free to do so, and here's the shell that you can refer to help guide you. 12 ramp spells, 8 removal, 8 draw, 9 go tall, 8 resilience, 8 lieutenant, 7 UBP, and 38 lands. And that does it for this episode. It's fun building with some restrictions. This is actually my first video where I brew a deck from the ground up with a strict budget in mind. And if you want to see more budget builds like this, let me know, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe because it would really help out. So until next time, stay grizzly, stay breezy, and stay inspired. See ya, pals.